Welcome to another episode of Chac's Chat. Join Chad Chelius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Chac's Chat podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we'd really like to remind you and any of our audience out there that if you're interested in sponsoring our podcast, to reach out to either Dax or myself on LinkedIn to discuss sponsorship opportunities. My name is Chad Chelius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor as well as Director of Training Solutions and Principal at Chac's Training and Consulting.
And my name is Dax Castro. I'm Director of Media Productions here at Chac's Training Consulting. And Chad and I are both certified as Accessible Document Specialists. And if you'd like your certification, head on over to accessibilityassociation.org/certification and get more information about getting your ADS. It's a great certificate to have, and it definitely validates that you have the chops to be an accessibility champion when it comes to documents and PDFs. So, hey, Chad, how you doing, man?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Fixing a hole in my roof. No koi pond updates. It's now I'm just, polishing things and connecting a few electricals and fixing a few leaks, just the little stuff. But of course, when one thing becomes finished, another thing starts. And so giant gaping hole in my roof. I went up there to check it out. It was dripping. And I went up there and looked. And in fact, I could just poke my finger right through the OSB board that was on the chipboard that was on top. So I spent most of this past few days fixing the hole. And now this weekend, I'm primed to patch it up and put the metal roof over it. So no more leaks ever. So that'll be good.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, here in the Northeast, I've been shoveling out of snow the last couple of days. And I was up on our roof shoveling off the solar panels.
Oh, wow.
Because when the solar panels are covered with snow, you make no electricity. So It was important that I did that, and we got that taken care of. So we're good to go.
Awesome.
So today, Dax, you and I were talking earlier in the week, and one of the topics that came up that is a very common question that we get. And that is the question of how to deal with QR codes.
Right. And I don't understand because I feel like this is a simple thing. It's like, how do you deal with an image that's a link? Because in essence, a QR code is really just an image, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, QR codes are kind of interesting, right? Because at their core, they are a entirely visual element, right? I mean, they're an element that let's just be clear. You kind of need sight to be able to use a QR code, right?
I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day, right? And I was watching TV actually, and I guess, you know what though, now that you mention this, I walk through the scenario in my head. I guess you're right, because the commercial came on and it was for a product. And of course, now what we're seeing a lot of is the QR codes come up while the commercial's playing. But but now that you mention it, I've never heard them say, use your phone to shoot the QR code. Because if I were blind listening to a product, I might be inclined to open my phone up and aim my camera at the TV and get the QR code, right?
And you might be successful, right? But what's missing, Dax, is the alt text,
right,
for the show, right? I mean, let's be honest, right? Yeah. There's no audio description, so that the user has no idea what's being flashed upon them on the screen. It reminds me a lot. You and I ran into this in Denver. The elevators, the buttons on the elevator were Braille.
Mm-hmm.
However, in order to use the buttons, you need to touch your key against the reader to give it permission for you to get up to another floor.
Right.
And the question is, how does a user know where that is?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I'll tell you that at CSUN, this is the very problem they have, that the elevators require you to use your key card, and then it tells you what elevator door to go to, and then it
Oh, right.
takes you to the floor. Very
Yeah.
non-traditional elevator. And I asked, how do blind people use this elevator? Because it's so, as a sighted person, I had problems the first time. And they said, we give every one of our blind people a tour if they're not a repeat customer of the hotel and already know the experience. We walk them over and explain how the elevator works and where the keypad is and where the doors are and the whole process. And I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, it's even at CSUN, where there is a high propensity of people with disabilities, it's probably not, I don't know what the statistic is, but maybe 1 in 50, maybe 1 in 50 or 1 in 30. So it's not like you're going to have a group of people lining up or waiting or whatever. You could easily take a few minutes to walk over, explain what's going on. And the nice thing about CSUN is they actually have staff there, extra staff, hotel staff that have been trained, so that once maybe the hotel register, I don't know what you call those people, hostess, or whoever's checking you in, agent, can pass you to that helper that can then go explain what's going on. So yeah, unaided, impossible to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm familiar with those elevators. I ran into that in LA. You type what floor you want to go to, and then it tells you which elevator you got to go into to get to that floor. Right. And that confuses the heck out of everybody. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of, if you have a visual impairment or not, it's very confusing. But
Good Maps, Good Maps actually is a digital, it's a phone app that you can use the camera to navigate through the hotel. And Good Maps actually puts the alt text into the camera. So when you go over to the elevator and it sees the elevator, it knows to tell you those instructions as well. But someone pointed out, the Good Maps has its drawbacks, because when there are 300 people all trying to use Good Maps and the Wi-Fi all at the same time, it doesn't always make for a smooth experience. And so definitely everything has its pluses and minuses. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sure you could run into some delays, when you're using that technology. But so yeah, getting back to the QR codes, I mean, fundamentally they're really a visual element. And you, Dax, you and I see that. I don't know, this is an area I'm not knowledgeable about, probably in a good way, but you and I know, we see QR codes all the time in the men's room.
Right.
They love to post posters above the urinals. And so, it's like a captive audience, right? I mean, what else are you going to look at? Right. And on those posters,
I'm busy with something else. I am not going to whip out my phone and shoot a QR code while I'm trying to do the other thing I actually came into the bathroom for, because I'm sure the people to the left and right of me want my attention focused on the task at hand, literally, pun intended, so that I can make sure that I do things appropriately. So yeah, very interested.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So anyway, we see QR codes everywhere, and for the most part, that they're a very visual element. I think we kind of touched on the fact that they could be made accessible in some ways, right? I mean, if you're watching a TV show, and if there was some I keep calling it alternate text. What's it called?
Audio description.
Audio descriptions on there, they might have some success with users with visual impairments being able to capture that. But when we talk about QR codes in a document, what you often will see is a lot of times it's on the, well, I guess it could be anywhere in the document, but you'll see a QR code. Sometimes to the right of the QR code is a paragraph of text that kind of reinforces where the QR code is taking them.
Right.
And that's a really good situation, in my opinion, because if there's a paragraph of text that says, scan the QR code to the left, or visit our website at, and then have a hyperlink. right?
Yeah.
That
The problem with that though is, first of all, and I know you just made the example up on the fly, so this is not a beat you up, because it's a real example, right? I mean, it's definitely things you would see, but to the left is visual language, and
sure.
that text is going to be after the link. Right now, as remediators, our job would then be to present the text before the link, but then now you have the word to the left. And so then the user's left trying to understand, did I miss a QR code ahead? It creates a whole series of issues, right? Because we're thinking visual language, right? And so
yeah.
I think our guidance, and this is where Chad and we do these solutions consulting, where you come and talk to us and we can walk you through stuff like this and say, look, it's just as powerful to say, scan the QR code and get information about whatever, than to say to the left. And it's those small nuances that make our jobs as remediators harder or easier. And by simply leaving out just 2 words to the left, 3 words, it makes it a better user experience that we can, as remediators, overcome by just putting that text in the tags tree ahead of the QR code, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a really good observation, Dax, because you're right. I mean, I wasn't thinking when I said that. I should have said, scan the QR code on this page, right?
Yep.
Maybe that would have been a more, non-directionally instruction. But anyway, so it's always good, and I feel like it's a good practice to have supporting text next to the QR code that also contains the link.
Yep.
Because that's going to make it super easy for the user to get to the same location as the QR code. Now, you and I both know that's not always the case. A lot of times they'll just plop the QR code on the page with no supporting text, because the majority of people know, oh, it's a QR code. I can scan that and it's going to take me somewhere.
Yep.
But for somebody using assistive technology, that it's not as easy by default. Although I think you and I are going to argue that it can be made as easy.
Well, it depends on how it's tagged, right? Because you may not know it's there. And in fact, you could never know it's there. Because if you go through the tags and as you get to the QR code, it's not going to say QR code, it's going to say link. And then it's going to be linked to whatever. So the difference between a text link and a QR code link at that point would be none. It would sound exactly the same to the screen reader user, because they would hear link, company website, or whatever the URL is, right? There's nothing there to tell people it's a QR code. And what we find is that people who are remediating documents get tripped up because they've got to have description for the alt text for the image, and they've got to have a description for the link. And somehow there's a confusion about which one goes inside which one, or where it goes, or what order it's presented. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, right, Chad?
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the ways that we can make this QR code accessible is in the tags tree, we can wrap that QR code, which fundamentally is a figure, right? It's just a graphic, but we'll wrap that figure in a link tag.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically encapsulates that figure. And you just said this, Dax. I mean, you can add alt text to the figure, and then you can also add alt text to the link itself.
Sure.
Right. And so I know my approach is typically the alt text for the figure simply says QR code. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to really describe that element.
If you're listening to this podcast and you say QR code with 4 squares and a bunch of squiggly patterns, please stop. Please just
no value.
Just QR code is fine.
Yeah. But so if you wrap that QR code in a link, you're now giving the user the ability to, of course, follow that link, and it will take them. It's basically an equivalent experience to scanning the QR code.
Right.
So yeah, and that's you could do that in Acrobat. It is a wee bit tricky, right? Because you can draw the link around the object, But then you've got to use the find command in the tags pane to say find unmarked annotations and then tag that as a link, right? Tag it as a link. And by doing that, you now have a link tag, and you're probably going to have to manually nest that figure in that link at that point.
I bet that's the thing where people are getting tripped up, is using the find untagged annotation, because in a source file, it's easy. In InDesign, you can go in, create the link, the QR code and all of that. But when someone hands you a PDF that's already baked and you have to make the QR code accessible, right? For me, I would 100% agree that I would be searching for, where do I add this link to, right?
Yeah.
And being able to put a link on a figure is not intuitive. And that's kind of where we're going with that. In Acrobat.
It's not. And in Acrobat, like you do have the ability to click. So we know in Acrobat, using the selection tool, you can drag to select text.
Yep.
And you can click on a figure and it highlights it.
Right.
But it doesn't really let you do anything to it. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, you do that and you're like, oh, let's right click. And you're like, oh, well, there's nothing there.
No, Chad, I just tried this. So I'm in Acrobat. I can select an image. And matter of fact, I'm going to share screen here real quick. Since we can do that. We have the technology. There we are. Share. So this is a document, and I have an image here. I can select this image. I can right click on it and do create link. Right now, the first thing though I need to do is open up my read order tool. Right, I can open up my
tag the figure
read order tool and tag the figure, and so I'm gonna draw my square around that and tag it as a figure. And now I've got my figure, and then I'm gonna click on it, create link, open a file, and we're gonna just put our own URL there. All right. And now if I look inside the figure, you're right. Where's my link? I don't have a link. So where should I go, Chad? Where do I look?
So now if you're in the tags pane, so go to the option button at the top of the tags pane.
Okay.
And choose find. And actually, before you do that, Dax, you want to click on tags at the very top. There you go. And now do find, and you would say unmarked links in the drop down, and then find.
Oh, it found the one that's there.
Okay.
And there's that one.
Go.
And hit tag element.
Yeah.
And then
choose link from the drop down.
Right.
Or type it in. Yeah.
Yep.
And then
all right.
Now in your tags tree, you have the link. It didn't properly nest it, but it's easy enough to drag that figure as a child of the link tag. And now that link is encompassing that figure and is applying to the figure itself.
Let's put that where it's supposed to go. That's interesting. So
I hate when that happens.
I know. So if I drag the figure under the link tag, because I got to drag it. So here's what's happening, guys. Right now, it's set to be a sibling. See how the line goes all the way to the left outside of the tag image. If I put it as a child inside, it disappears because there's no way for a tag to be a child of a link OBJR. So you just have to remember, you got to keep it out all the way out. So now we have the... Go ahead.
I was so happy when they added undo to the tags pane, because I had lost so many tags doing this, you know, and you drag it and you're like, what happened to it? Where'd it go? You know what I mean?
See, and for me, I would probably take this, I would do it the opposite way, because the figure is the object and the link is the thing inside of it, right? I think of it as a figure with a link inside. Either way is fine, except you need to make sure that the placement value of the figure tag is correct. So like this, the placement value is block. And for those of you listening, right, I'm remiss, I did not do a good job of explaining what was going on. So we have a figure tag in the tags tree, and there is a link tag. And initially, when we found the link tag using the find, they were both siblings. They were at the same level of each other. And we needed to put one inside the other. And Chad's approach, 100% correct, to have the link tag as the parent tag and the link OBJR obviously inside there, but then the figure tag goes inside the link, right? I tend to use the figure as the parent tag and the link as the child of the parent. And either way will pass PAC, except that the figure as a child of the link tag requires a placement level of inline versus the opposite way where the figure tag is the parent, it needs a placement value of block. So yeah, that's the trick.
And if you do it my way, the link has to have a placement of block, but then conversely, the figure tag has to have a placement of inline.
Right.
Like you'll often get an error on that because you've got these block level figure elements inside of a link tag and it says, no, that's not allowed.
Well, it'll just say possible improper use of the little yellow exclamation
use. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and that's, kind of the way to do it. Let's go back a second here. I just want to try something. Let's go back and just artifact these things. And so here's the thing. So if I just delete this tag, this link OBJR, it doesn't delete it. It's still here. Let's do it. So if I go back to my tags tree and I'm like, okay, I'm going to untag this, and I just delete the link tag. If I go into my content pane and look at page 4, which is what we're on, we can see that link still exists, right? So Chad, you've taught me that the only way to do this is to go to edit PDF, right? And then where do I go?
Go to the link menu up at the top and choose add, edit, web, or document link.
And there's that little box.
And you can just click on it and delete it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And now I think when I close this annotation, I think I have to save it.
Or maybe save it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it to there. There. Now, if I go in here, now there's just the one link annotation. So just to note, guys, if you're ever frustrated that you can't delete a link in the content panel, that's how you do it. So let's go back to our document here, right? So let's go ahead and use the read order tool again. And we're going to go open the read order tool, and we're going to select our image, and then we're going to hit tag it as a figure. And then we're going to select our figure, put it inside our document tag like it's supposed to be. Select our figure and do create link with the figure selected. Open web page, www.accessibilityunraveled.com. And then now if we look inside our figure tag, we have our link OBJR. We are missing, obviously, the link tag itself, so create new link. But we don't have to use the find to find the untagged annotation. I don't know that really saves a whole lot of time, I guess. Still have to either move it or create a new tag either way. But those are two different ways you could kind of get there. But again, you still have to go into your figure tag and make sure that your attributes are set. And in this case, we don't have a block or an inline or block level. So we're going to add placement under key value equals block. And then name is the right value type and hit OK. And now we're good to go. Now the link should be in line, I think, by default, right?
I think
Chad?
by default it is, because typically it's in a P tag.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to see it in the properties, but I think by nature it is.
And that's a good thing to note, guys. If you ever go into the edit attribute objects of the properties of a tag and you see, hey, there's nothing in here I can see, that's just because there's nothing custom set. But if you go back and do edit tag, under tag element, you can actually drill in here and see that there are actual properties. There's the link and the structure type is link, but I'm not seeing placement as a value. There's the content key and, or that's just the contents. Type is OBJR. So finding the placement in this can be really arduous, trying to figure out where the heck that thing is. So if you're unsure, you can just come in here and do new object under the edit tag, object attributes, and then select new item and then placement and then inline, right, Chad?
Yep.
And then now you can see it there. And now you know if you run the pack checker. I mean, you could just run the pack checker and find out before you change it if it passes or not. But this way, you know you've done it correct. Link is inline, figure is block, and you should be good to go. Now you have, in essence, a QR code with a link, but you're missing what, Chad? What are we missing? Alt text, right?
What? Oh, of course. Yeah. On the figure. Yeah.
So for this, it would be QR code. Now, of course, it's not a QR, but QR code for the alt text for the image. And then the alt text for the link would be under alternate descriptions for link. But we know that NVDA and JAWS still do not honor the content key. So if you really want it to be voiced, you have to put it in both. Raveled.com. And so you'd want to have alt text for image and alt text for link so that NVDA and JAWS can both hear it and you can still be code compliant, right?
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I know we don't have a QR code on screen here, but that's really the process, guys. I mean, it's, and Chad brought up a good point, right? In that having descriptive text around your near your QR code is wildly valuable for the people. I think for everyone, right? Because if the QR code linked to a download our brochure, but you didn't tell me I was downloading a brochure, I'd want to know, right?
Well, and you know what the super annoying thing about a QR code is that if I'm viewing this document on my desktop computer, I can't get to it on my desktop computer. I got to pull out my phone, snap a shot of my screen, and now I have it on my phone, but I might want it on my computer. Right?
Well,
and
that's if it isn't tagged, but if it's tagged correctly, then the link is clickable. Once you create that link, now I can just click on it and go to the thing. But if it's an untagged document, if this document contains no tags, my only way to activate it is to I guess shoot it with my phone. Chad, somebody should make a plugin. I mean, it's an unneeded plugin because they should be doing it correctly in the first place. But I bet you somebody has come up with a desktop QR code reader.
I mean, you're really making me think now because, I'm a Mac guy, right? So my iPhone or Android, whatever, when your camera sees the QR code, it detects it.
Right.
What I'm curious is if the camera on my computer will do the same thing. Probably
I don't
not,
think so.
right?
No.
Probably. Yeah. That would be mind blowing, right? But because I'm thinking like, okay, take a picture of it with my phone, flip it around and show it to my computer. That doesn't.
But
make
if you're
sense,
taking it a picture with your phone, then you have your phone, right? I mean, then you could just shoot the QR code. But what I was thinking of is something like the colorblind simulator, where it's a floating window. And I can just put it over the window that has the QR code and hit launch. And then it would launch the QR code. All right. Anybody stealing my idea? I am verbally copywriting that right now. The things we think of, the rabbit holes we go down, huh, Chad?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's the value of making a QR code a link has benefits beyond just assistive technology, because as we just talked about, if I'm, a sighted user and I'm reading this document, I see a QR code, I should be able to click on it to also get to that, to that URL, right?
Right.
And we wanted to show our audience too. You just showed them doing that in Acrobat. Here I have an InDesign file that I created, and so I created some paragraph text to kind of like simulate what we were talking about, right? Here's my website. You could click the link to get there, but InDesign also has the ability to generate a QR code. And if I come up to the object menu, I could choose generate QR code, tell it to generate a QR code for a web hyperlink, and I could type
accessibilityunraveled.com. What are the other options in that drop down?
You can do a plain text link, a text message, an email, or a virtual business card.
Oh, that's cool. So if you just wanted a pop-up message, you could use plain text. Something would just pop up on like when you mouse over something for alt text, right? That's cool.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. And then my cursor gets loaded and I could just say, okay, I want to put my QR code here next to my text, right?
Yeah.
Now within InDesign, right? So everybody knows that I could go to my text frame options and I can add alt text on this guy. So I could say, okay, you are a QR code. Great. And then I can open my hyperlinks panel and I can create a new hyperlink with that object selected.
Right. It's got to be selected first. Now you can see the little dotted line around it to make sure that it's selected. Yeah.
Everybody's impressed by my typing skills.
Well, he's for those of you listening, he's got the new hyperlinks panel open. He unchecked the shared hyperlink destination, which you should always do. And then you typed in the URL for Accessibility Unraveled. And in the alt text under the accessibility tab, he's typing CHACS Training and Consulting, world's best dominating accessibility training. He actually wrote CHACS Training Consulting website, right? Tell them where they're going to go.
Yep. And when I click OK, you have a visual difference in appearance now because that QR code now has like a bold dashed border around it.
Yep.
Visually telling you that this is now a hyperlink, right? Whenever you hyperlink an image, that's what you get.
Right. Now export it to PDF.
Yeah. Now the beauty is when I export this to a PDF, when I open up my tags tree, I automatically have, the paragraph of text.
Yep.
Right. And then I also have my link, and within the so
it does it the way you did it, right?
InDesign structures it the way that I do it. Yeah. So it has a link tag. Within the link tag is the figure tag, and on the figure tag we have the alt text for the QR code. I don't think we have to dive pretty deep into
without that. Yeah. So let's run this through the pack checker and see what we get. I'm interested.
Oh, so right here's the contents key.
Right.
Where we are seeing that. Right. So yeah.
Well, hold on. Before you do that though, go back into the links tag, because we do have one thing we need to do. We need to copy the alternate description for links into the alternate description for images. Hit close. True. Now that used to not be possible. They had disabled that field initially on the one of the previous releases of InDesign, but then opened it back up for us now, knowing that that NVDA and JAWS can't actually get to it. Were you going to use the online checker?
Yeah, just because I'm on a Mac.
Right.
And so I have to.
Yeah. So for those of you who may not be aware, the pack checker is available for Mac as a web interface. It's not as robust as the desktop version for Windows, but it does give you some understanding of whether or not your document's accessible. He's running the checker.
So the errors that I'm getting, guys, And this is where InDesign, it did a lot of things really well, but it also fell short. So I'm getting an error, inappropriate use of a link structure element,
Right.
and an inappropriate use of a figure structure element, because the link is not properly set to block and the figure is not properly set to inline.
Okay.
So it structured everything correctly, but I'm going to have a little bit of cleanup to do on the back end, right? To kind of make everything work correctly.
So what it really means, guys, is that in InDesign, it can help you create the objects, but it's not going to set the placement level correctly in the PDF. So if you use InDesign to create your QR code, make it a figure and give it a link, yes, all the objects will be there, but you'll need to go back in and set that placement value neat to block or inline, depending upon how the content was scheduled. So.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you found that podcast interesting. Interesting talk about QR codes and how to address them. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I really thank you all for joining us today. And we'll catch you guys next time. My name is Chad Chelius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where each week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.